Okay. All right. I think we're right at time. Let's go ahead. I want to be respectful to everybody's time. We'll just go ahead and get started here. We might have some others join. Just quick note that, of course, this is being recorded in case you want to share this out with anyone else in your org later on. But welcome, everybody. Thank you guys all for joining us today for a highly anticipated topic, reinventing submittals. So we're really, really excited to share with everybody what we've been working on, but also importantly, we are excited to hear from you. We want to hear from you guys today about how you all manage submittals in your day-to-day.
Right, and just to kind of set up what you'll see today, this session is really designed to be a preview of what we've been working on, of our alpha capabilities. It's also where you can provide feedback to us, right? We'll have some polls pop up. You can put some information in the Q&A. So we want this to feel a little bit more conversational. So as you have thoughts, you have feelings, feel free to put those in the Q&A. Anything that we don't have time to get to, we will get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, so quick intro, like I said. So for those of you who don't know us, I'm Jen Leacock. I'm joined by Nicole Chance. We're both members of the product team here at RedTeam. We both work closely with our design and engineering teams to bring the field and project management workflows you guys deal with day to day to life inside of RedTeam. We know that today is a highly anticipated update to RedTeam. So we really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us and to learn more about it.
So just kind of taking a look at what we'll be going through today, we're going to start with the business problem, right? Why do submittals even matter? Where do they usually go off track? Then we'll look at how AI can take us from spec books to submittal logs in minutes. Then we'll tackle what's replacing those massive spreadsheets so many of us have relied on. And then we'll explore smarter workflows, so how to stay ahead with visibility and accountability. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Q&A and a chance for you to share your experiences, ask us any questions that you want.
Yeah, and Nicole mentioned this, but throughout the session, we're going to run some quick polls. So just be prepared. Those will pop up at certain points. We'll read them out, but just take a minute if you can. Give us your responses. That kind of stuff really helps us to learn from you guys what's really happening on your projects.
Yeah, exactly. So before we dive in, just a quick note about what you'll see today. As I referenced before, these are our alpha features. So they'll be available to a select group of clients for early review and feedback. That access will actually begin next week. So if you're part of the alpha group and you're here today, you'll be receiving some information from me tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that.
Perfect. Yeah, but that's, keep in mind everything's still evolving as it goes. So, we'll be reaching out with more information as well to the general audience, not just those alpha groups. So just keep that in mind. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well again at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of thinking about when features will be ready for that wider release. Your customer success managers will reach out with details about when these will be more generally available. Also, just, our regular emails and updates for our team will be coming out beforehand to let you know. So as you can see, we've got a poll question here. So before we dive into kind of that real life submittal problems and features, let's start with a general poll. So where do you personally feel the biggest bottleneck lies? Is it somewhere with the architect or engineer? Is it the project owner? Is it subcontractors and trades? Or at times, is it people on your own team, right? So take a second and vote if you can.
Yeah, take a minute. I'll share a little story. So I was talking to a client who had a job, submittals. We were talking about submittal pain. And had a job with a lot of quick turnaround, tight schedules. They had a project engineer, right, who came in, got tasked with submittals. And this is pre, RedTeam. So using spreadsheets, we're using emails, we're doing a lot of manual work, right? And we get the steel erection drawings approved. Awesome. Except for the approval sits in his inbox. And a couple days later, they laid the guy off. And so, PM comes in a little bit later. You can imagine, right, the frustration, the scare when that's uncovered, buried in somebody's email inbox. And now the schedule's late, the steel's late, right? So, we know that these are the real life problems people deal with. That's really what we want to talk about next. Okay. Right. Okay, so let's get into it, right? Let's start, grounding ourselves a little bit. Why do submittals even matter? So, a lot of people think of submittals, they're a lot of paperwork, and they are, right? But in reality, they are how the design intent becomes the real materials, the systems, and the actual finishes that are out in the field. It's really the bridge between the design team and the construction that's actually happening.
Right, exactly. So it really just verifies that, what's being installed matches what was specified. Are you procuring the right materials, fabricating the right materials, and, will they be delivered on time?
Yeah. So it's an accountability issue, right? In a lot of ways. Like we heard this story just now, right? When your process can be derailed by one single person forgetting to forward an email or check their inbox, you've already lost control of the risk. So you absolutely need a system. You need something that makes the statuses clear of every item, that stops things from getting lost, keeps the critical path moving. Because we all know, submittals are delayed, then everything else downstream on the project is going to feel it. The materials don't get ordered, lead time starts slipping, schedule gets tight, and then, of course, everyone is asking for updates. The owner, the field, everyone needs to know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those processes that seems administrative, but we know that it very highly impacts your cost control, schedule reliability, whether your client even trusts you if your schedule slips because, submittals weren't appropriately handled and timely handled. So, if the submittals are managed well, the project will run great. And we know that when they're not, the ripple effects can be huge, like Jen mentioned.
Yeah. So, it's why we understand, right? We firsthand, Nicole and I especially, right? We've been here, we've talked with clients. We know, that this is one of those processes that deserves more attention than it normally gets. It seems, again, like such a simple thing. It's documentation, right? But it's a big pain today, right? For most GCs, we know it's still handled with spreadsheets, with email folders, with, late night file searches, trying to get updates out to the team. It's a lot of manual.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of where the pain first starts, right? It's putting that sheet together, kind of tracking everything through the sheet. So let's kind of talk about what we see just across the industry.
Yeah, like in real life, what we really see, it sounds linear. But people from the outside will say, submittals is pretty straightforward, right? You log what's required, you collect what's needed from subs, you review them, you approve them, you move on. But it's really not that simple, right? It's often pretty messy.
Right, exactly. So, your spec book might be late or incomplete. Someone on your team has to spend a day or even a week, right, compiling this log. Every PM might have a slightly different way that they want to track everything, a different format. There's not consistency across projects. Then, when updates are shared, maybe you have different versions of the log kind of out there being shared in email. There's not really any system in place. So, by mid project, you might not know where everything lies, right? It's not easy for every team member to kind of take a look and see exactly where the status of every item is to know 100% that these things have been approved, what's outstanding, who's responsible at any given time.
Yep. So, I mean, and we literally hear this. We hear it literally from our PMs, our project engineers, who tell us they spend entire work weeks just setting up logs. They're tracking 200 plus line items across 15 different subs, right? This can turn into very quickly a full-time admin job just managing submittals. And we understand, right? We know that your teams don't have time to babysit logs and chase updates and remind who's responsible. Like you need to focus on, catching scope gaps and adding notes for the design team, keeping the approvals moving. You might spend an entire day, lose an entire day buried in, door hardware submittals, but that's the stuff you want to be spending your time on. Your system should be updating the rest in the background, sending out the reminders that you need, tracking who's responsible, so you don't need to be focused on those things.
Right, exactly. So, talking about all of that, needing to manually update things, not sure, maybe you update the wrong line, right? Maybe things aren't where they need to be. So, we know, again, that this is a huge contractual and financial exposure issue. So, we want to be sure that the system automates as much of this process as possible, makes it simple. You don't really have to think about it that much, right? So, if there ever is a dispute, I know on me personally, I've been part of some legal things that have happened where my submittal log and the fact that my software tracked when various people took actions, they say they never got their approval, and I can see that they opened it and I can prove that with metadata from the software, right? That was a huge win for our team to be able to show that kind of data, right? So even just using a software, even to track and save all that time, but then when it moves into potentially, a legal issue, that you've got something real that you can take with you. So it's very important.
Exactly. Yeah, one of my favorite, sayings in our industry, right, is that it's not about what you did, it's what you can prove. So, you can see where this isn't just an admin problem; it's a project performance problem. That's what we're here to help with. So, we're going to dive into those, talk a little bit about some of those, connecting that now to some of the solutions that we've built. But before we do, we're going to do another poll. So we mentioned this; we'd be having a few of these polls. The next poll we want to ask about, kind of general, is what's the biggest submittal challenge for your teams, right? So this could be building the initial log, right? Taking that spec book and turning it into a log. Could be keeping that log then up to date, tracking approvals and turnaround times for all those items, general accountability, knowing who's got the ball at any given time, or could be everything that we just mentioned. And again, you'll see that poll pop up. We would love to get your thoughts on that one too.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, so I've been involved in having to request submittals from people, build that initial log, have to track everything through the process. And then I've also been on the other side as a specialty sub, and I've been the one largely receiving the requests for all of that. And I know everything poses its own challenges, right? So from the GC side, again, just whether it's building that log, whether it's managing everything, every time you get an email, having to open this spreadsheet and make sure you're logging it at that minute. And then when you get a call from the job site at the same time that you're trying to log this, did I remember to log that before I then had to go rush and, try to get a change order out the door? So we know there's all kinds of pain points here as and challenges.
Yeah, that's why we included the all of the above option, right? Perfect. Okay, well, I'll stay up for just a second, but we'll move on. So let's talk about then, connecting that pain, right, to the opportunity we have in RedTeam. So when we look across all of those challenges that we just talked about, we saw three key opportunities for improvement, right? One's faster setup, right? Turning that spec book into a usable log. This shouldn't take days, weeks, right, to do. We have all kinds of technology now to help us with that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Smarter tracking, right? So teams need the flexibility of Excel, but without the crazy version chaos, right? 5 different versions nobody can rely on. And then clear accountability. At any given time, everyone should know exactly who has the next action and what's due.
Right. So that's really where our focus has been as we've worked on this project. So we're really trying to reimagine the entire process from setup to follow up. So we've gotten feedback over the years. We know just in general, right, submittal management is a really complicated, painful process. But we also know our solution wasn't really helping to solve all of those pain points that the industry has. So we've conducted several rounds of research with our clients. We've talked explicitly about the struggles users felt as they process these items, what they'd like to see in an ideal solution. So we use that feedback to create concept designs. Then we held additional rounds of client research to preview those prototypes and discuss any updates. So what we're about to show a sneak peek of is really a direct result of those sessions. And so we really appreciate if any of you are here who've participated in our feedback sessions. We very much appreciate your feedback. You will see that it has directly impacted what we've built here. So let's take a quick look at some of our functionality.
Awesome. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about is the spec book, right? Spec book bottleneck. So we know what the spec book is, right? This defines the roadmap for all our materials and methods, but we need to be able to extract submittal requirements from this. And, taking all that data and, turning it into an actionable list, a log that we can use to start to track all of the actions that needs to happen there. And like I mentioned, we have all kinds of technology now that helps us do that. So we want to show you some of the ways we've done that. And I'm going to let Nicole bring it up so we can take a look.
Sounds good. So we just kind of wanted to take a look here at our AI powered extraction. So it's going to automatically read the spec book that we've uploaded here. Even if you've got plans that have a ton of specification and requirements in them, you can upload those files as well, and it will pull out some recommended submittal items. So what you're going to do is be able to go through and kind of look at the different spec sections. It breaks it down by spec section. Then you'll see the individual items that it's recommending alongside your spec book. So in this case, I have something that I've already taken a look at. I felt like it was good. I added it to my log. We can see the section information is here. But then if I want to take a look at something that I've not yet added to my log, the system will pull to that, and then the page will update in the spec document so that I can see exactly where, with this highlight, the information is pulling from. So if I think I need to make any updates, whether it's I don't agree, I don't really think this is a submittal item, or maybe, hey, I want to change the name that's going to show here in my log, or I want to update the submittal type. I think it missed the mark a little bit, or I want to add a name to this spec section as well, right? I can go and update this information and I can add, spec section name, etc. So then I'll be able to go through, I can add this to my log, and then so on, right? So that I can see side by side all of the recommended information. I'm going to save a ton of time. I don't need to be copying and pasting all of this. I can just give a general perusal of the information. Again, because it goes right to that highlighted area, it's really easy for me to see if there's anything I feel like I need to correct before I then share and send it to my log.
Yeah, so you can see, right? It's a tool that's, follows what we normally see teams doing, right? Pulling up the spec book, looking at it, wanting to break it down by spec section, division, and then start looking, from each of those sections, what the requirements are. So that's exactly what we did, right? Now you can quickly extract those and, we're saving you time, right? You imagine now you walk in to your kickoff meeting and you've got 95% of the log already built, because we're just going to pull it in for you. So we love this feature. We know that this is one we hear from teams a lot. Let me go back to our presentation here.
Let me stop sharing that. So yeah, this is one of the things that we're most excited about. So we just wanted to make sure that we were able to show that to you today as well.
Yep, exactly. So, like we saw, you've got a lot of the heavy lifting done there on the AI side. I think, Nicole, we want to do another poll as well, and then we'll talk about our next feature.
All right, so this one is really about how long it typically takes your team to create your submittal log from the spec book. So is it less than a day? Kind of depends, think about your average project. We know every project's a little bit different. The spec books might be bigger or smaller, right? But kind of on average, is it less than a day? Is it 1 to 3 days? Is it a week? Is it more than a week, right? On some large projects, multi-building, something like that, potentially it takes longer. So we'd love to hear from you a little bit about how long that generally takes you.
Yeah, and maybe at the end too, if anybody wants to share, we're going to have kind of an open Q&A at the end with just general feedback. So, maybe thinking about sharing how you guys are doing it today, if anybody is using AI tools or if anybody's using another specific submittal type of tool, or, if a lot of it is still very manual, we'd be really interested, but we'll have more of that open session at the end. All right, we'll let you guys finish up that poll, but we'll keep moving into our next item here. Okay, so next problem we want to talk about, the spreadsheets, right? Ditching the spreadsheets, the whole spreadsheet trap that we're all stuck in, right? Once you've built your log, the next battle we all know is actually tracking it. And again, we know most people are doing that in Excel.
All right, so taking a quick look here at our new spreadsheet style interface for submittal management. So basically taking a look here, we've tried to make it as customizable as possible. So each user can really see the view that they want, right? So we've got 27 possible columns. You don't need all 27 open at all times. Probably depends on where you are in the submittal management process, but each user will have the ability to have it remember which columns you had open in this project previously, right? So the next time you come to the project, it'll open right up to that same kind of view. You can organize the information however you want. Do you want to organize it by spec section? Maybe you've got different team members that are handling different spec sections, and you want to take a look at the things that are more pertinent to you, but you also want to be able to check out that other team member's items as well. We can filter by so many things, right? We've got all the different possible columns here. So we can filter by a ton of that information. We can choose where these columns lie in our view, right? So if I think that for me right now, item number isn't that important for me. I care more about spec section. I care about court. I care about status, right? It's that simple for me to change my view to ensure that I'm seeing exactly what I want to see at any given point. And so taking a look here very quickly at our status column, one of the things we know, again, we've talked about it already here, huge pain point in terms of accountability. Where is this item in the process and who's responsible, right? So if you look at these court and status columns, what we've done is you'll know at any given time where this item is sitting, right? So this particular item is sitting on Shay Chance with Chance Construction, right? So I know it's overdue pending submission. It's a day late from Shay, right? So it's quite easy for me to know, see this quickly, follow up with her. There's some items that are on me, right? I'm Nicole Chance, I'm with Karenin & Co. And so I can see because this item is in my court, I have an action that I can take directly here from that status. This one is on me to review. It's very easy for me to click this button and start that item review. So just kind of a look at the fact that I see how many days something is due. I see that status. If it's on me, something like not started is in my court because I'm the submittal manager. So the system knows that it's my turn to do something, whether it's I'm going to submit on behalf of another submitter. Maybe my company is providing those submittals, so I can be the one to actually upload and move this through the review that I've set up for that item. Or do I need to go and request submittals, right? So I know that this is on me and I can, sort by my court. So now I see all the things that are in my court, right? And then if I want to follow up with Shay, I can see, hey, Shay, these two things are on you. One is already late, one is coming due. So why don't you do what you can to get both of those to me today? So we really tried to make it as easy as possible for you to kind of take a look at what's going on all of these items, right? If something is not started, it's not already gone out for review, there's quite a bit that I can go update directly in the log, right? We don't want you to have to leave this log view to go open several forms to make some updates, things like that, right? So we've made it where you can go here, you can update all of this. If you want custom item numbering, you can come in and number this whatever you want. You can have letters, dashes, whatever you like in your item numbers. So I just kind of wanted to take a look at this more kind of easy to use, everything is easy to see approach. One more thing I wanted to point out. So we took a look just a moment ago at our extraction tool, another easy way to build the log. If you've got similar projects and you tend to pull in a lot of the same types of items, you can also import from another project. So that'll pull in the name, spec section, description, type, all these things that'll at least allow you to quickly build out quite a bit of your log. Similarly here on the bottom, we have this new add submittals drawer. And it's as easy as this, right, to create a new submittal item. So I can be referencing other items that I've created already. Very easy to not have to continuously leave this view, go to different forms. We really wanted to make it a single location where you can do everything you need to. You can refer to other items. It's as simple as if I just want to build this information, I can add the name, the spec section, and leave it there and then come back later and add some additional information. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So it should look, pretty familiar, right? To a lot of you guys. That was awesome, Nicole. I'm going to switch back to the presentation, but so perfect. But yeah, you can see, right, our approach, we're trying to keep what works, right? Spreadsheet style UI, but it connects to your live project data. So, you can filter, you can group, you can inline edit, all that, just like Excel, like Nicole showed. But the difference is everyone sees the same information. There's no submittal log V1 and V3 and V3 revised, and nobody knows what's the exact log, right? On and on. No one trusts the right version that they're looking at, right? And now you're spending all this time keeping track of what's the most current spreadsheet instead of, reviewing the elevator buttons, which is what, the work that really needs to be getting done. So, we're trying to really just give you that familiarity, but also keep that consistency across the board. Okay, so we are going to do another poll. I think at this point we want to do another poll, and it is around the log itself, right? So we are curious, how much of your log, your submittal log, do you share with external project stakeholders, right? So that we're talking about the people not necessarily within your org, but the architects, the design team, the subs. How much do you share with them? Is it full transparency? Everybody looks at the same log, right? Everybody has the same information. Is it a little bit more controlled, right? You kind of have a pared down version of the log that's relevant for each party, right? Architects have their own and so forth. Or is it totally limited, right? Internal projects have access, updates get sent out some other way, and that log is never shared. Or is this more of kind of a case by case thing? We're really curious about that. We are going to be talking here in just a little bit about kind of how those updates are shared across the external stakeholders, right? So this is definitely one we are interested in your thoughts. And I'll just kind of kick us off on the topic, and then Nicole will share some stuff. Okay, perfect. So, right, now you have a good log, but now the biggest breakdown happens, right? Which is the follow-up. When we don't know, who's responsible at any given moment, this becomes, half the admin work of just chasing down, figuring out what is the status. So that's where ball and court comes in, right? Clear ball and court ownership for every submittal item. And that's going to come with an automated workflow so that we know exactly what's happening. If the submittal's sitting with the architect for 5 days, we know if it's overdue, the system can automatically flag who's the responsible party for that, right? As the activities are completed, next step kicks off, we keep everything moving. So that's the whole goal with ball and court. Nicole can show us a little bit more.
All right, so what we're taking a look at here is this item 10, right? So what I did to open this item was just click on the item name here, and it opens this side panel. So just taking a look a little bit at what tells this whose court it should be in, right, at any given time. So what we've done is we've set up our submitter company, their due date, a person. There could be multiple people. We could have 2 submitter contacts here. We know sometimes people that you've dealt with in the bidding process, that was an estimator, maybe they're not the one you're going to be dealing with. So you've got their PM, you've got them both on here just in case. And then with our review steps, what we try to do is make it super, super customizable for you. We know not only different project types, but just different items within your projects might require different workflows, right? Some items, maybe the engineer needs to provide input. You want to be able to set that up ahead of time. You don't want your architect to have to go and add the engineer to the workflow. It should already be done ahead of time, right? So what we allow you to do is set up these review steps. If you take a look here, we've got a submittal manager step in your company who's responsible to handle this item, but maybe that's not who reviews it for me. Maybe this is, the owner's rep is going to handle this first review, right? So I can change the name of that step. I can see within that step, I've got Bear Mountain Authority. They're my owner, right? I've got Bennett Dobson. He's my owner rep. He's my initial reviewer on this item. If I wanted to, if there were additional companies that I want to include here, let's say there were additional parties with the owner's rep, I could add additional parties here. They can either be a reviewer or a view-only user at this point. So each step requires at least one reviewer, but maybe you have scenarios where there's 2 people who need to review an item. You don't necessarily care who reviews first. You can set up multiple people within this same step. That step has a due date, right? So each party knows when they receive their notification, I have to be done with my review at that time. However, in this case, right, we've got this architect step. Maybe this isn't an architect for this one, right? Maybe this is an engineer. So I update this, that example, because I'm going to use an architect here, pretend that was an engineer. I can set up this easily, write the date that I need them to be done with their review. So I say that's the 14th, right? And I've got people at Nicole Architect. Let's say I'm not sure. Both architects have worked on this with me. Just in case, I'm going to put both of these parties here. What it's going to do is the system will automatically assume that both of these parties need to review. However, what we've also built into our workflows is we know sometimes you might want to kind of skip something ahead, right? Maybe both of these parties really aren't required. So as the workflow starts, your submittal manager, your project manager can come in at any time and say, hey, Brian already reviewed and approved this. Nicole doesn't have to. I can move this forward. This is good to go, right? So there's still some manual control. So you truly do have control over your workflow. You set it up. It's going to be automated. it'll run through this process on its own. So if this is my workflow that I've set up for this item, as soon as Bennett is done with his review, Brian and Nicole are both going to get their notifications that, hey, it's on me to review. I didn't need to sit here and get an email back from Bennett, take a look at it, make sure I'm, looking at my log, forwarding it to the correct people. I know at that moment that everything is okay. This is already going to go where it needs. So I'll see that Bennett is done with his, and I'll see both Brian and Nicole will then show up in the court for this item. Everything will keep moving as it should. Also wanted to point out, I can add a review step, right? If I decided, hey, I actually do need an architect here after the engineer, now I can set that up as well. If I say, oops, I didn't really need that, I can delete it. I can also change the order in which the review happens, as long as review hasn't, that step hasn't yet kicked off. So again, just wanted to show a little bit about how customizable these workflows are. Again, per item, things could be different. We know a lot of your items will probably be the same, so you can have the same workflow there, but we did want to make it truly customizable because we know one of the pain points is there are certain items where owners reps need to be involved when it's, paint choices and things like that. You don't want to have to think about this later in the game. You want to be able to set that up ahead of time and have everything move the way that it should. All right.
Yeah. So this is all really, really useful to see. But then the other aspect of that, right, ball and court is, well, then, how do the other parties get to see their pieces? How do they, get access to know what's, they're responsible for? So I think that's another one we want to share a little bit. And we're not going to talk about micromanaging here. We're just talking about giving everybody that's part of the project team clarity, right? Everyone understands that they're responsible for some of these items. We'd rather not have to be sending constant follow-ups and finger pointing and, forgetting things and then having unnecessary surprises, right? We would like to just be able to give everybody the visibility into the log and the version of the log, right, that they need to take action on. So that's what Nicole's showing here.
Right. So exactly what we have built is a portal, right? So all your external team members are going to be able to log into this portal. So it'll be really easy for them to see all of the things that they need to see. So in this case, I'm logged in as one of the subs. I'm with Bathrooms and More. I'm Patrick Beatty. So I know all of the items that are on me, the status of all of them at a glance, right? So one of the things that we know is a pain point is we want to make sure that the people who are submitting, reviewing, taking any action in our submittals are truly the people that we think they are. So we authenticate users when they log in, so we know without a doubt who this person is when they're taking action here. The other thing is for your own team as well as external parties, right? It's good to see this kind of more broad view of everything. So what we've done kind of with the initial portal view here is really just give them some of the columns that we think are most important as we've talked to our users in feedback sessions. Obviously, as we go through the alpha feedback, we'll be sure that if there's anything we need to change, we can, but kind of starting with this certain view here. What they can do is see, just like on the other side, they can move their columns around, right? They can filter and organize. If they work for multiple GCs using Flex, they can switch between those companies up here. If they've got multiple projects for you they're working on, they can go through and they can say, hey, I want to see what's going on in this other project, right? So now I'm in the other project and everything's looking good. Doesn't look like a whole lot is on me in this project. I just have something that I need to submit here. Kind of taking a look back at this other project, just wanted to point out that, all of the items here, some we don't see a court, and that just means that this item is closed and acknowledged. There's nothing left. There's no one's court, right? The workflow is done. So some of these items are the items that are directly Patrick's items in, Bathrooms and More. They're directly his items. Others are just the approved official response files, so that if Patrick's work interacts with, or he needs the information from some of those previously closed submittals, he can see those as well, any of those approvals. So he knows that his work, will kick off how it should. They also have these statuses that have these calls to action, right? So if something is on your submitter, if something is on your architect, your engineer, they know at that moment, right? This is something that's very clear. They can review and acknowledge. They have the same thing where they can open this side panel and they can see, hey, this is the people that it'll go to. But if I hit review and acknowledge, I'm going to see that official response. I'll see any of the stamps. If it's approved as noted, something like that, I'll see all of that information, and then I can go acknowledge it from there. So just wanted to kind of point out that they have a very similar view to what you're seeing, which also helps you, right? If you're trying to talk your external parties through kind of what they're seeing in the log or that side panel, it's similar enough to what you're seeing that it's easy enough for everybody to kind of have this sort of spreadsheet feel and know exactly what they're responsible for at any time. In this case, we can see when something is late, right? It shows up 15 days late. I know this is on me. I'm going to get notifications and things, but it's also really easy for these parties to see the things that are late as opposed to the things that are on time that they need to be taking a look at. So we just wanted to show that a little bit here as well.
Yeah, it's the better version of the spreadsheet that's never up to date, right? So this one always is up to date. It's live. Everybody knows who's responsible. That's the whole idea. This is true collaboration that we're trying to get to here, right? Not sharing outdated versions of the log back and forth, but truly, collaborating on the items, knowing who's responsible at any time. So thanks, Nicole. That looks really good.
Nice. And so we're going to pull up another poll here in a second. So one of the things that we're currently working on is a new feature that'll let you copy the workflow that you saw and essentially paste it into other items, right? So just thinking about, I've already set this up how I wanted it, and now I can get this same workflow very easily into other items. I don't have to manage different templates. I can just set this up one time, apply it to as many items as I need. So we just want to know from you, as you're working through items like this, if you were to copy the workflow that you saw, kind of how much data would you expect, right, to carry over automatically? So would it be everything? Would you want it to copy the approval workflow, due dates, lead times, all the assignees, including submitters, right? Because maybe it's this group of 10 items, everything is the same, right? So I want to apply all of that quick and easy. Is it just reviewers and assignees? So is it really just the approval path and reviewers, but maybe leave the due dates and lead times off because each item might have a slightly different due date, but I want to kind of get all of my items set up with the same review workflow? Or is it workflow end dates? Is it you want that approval path and the due dates and lead times, but not necessarily the assignees, right? Certain items might have different assignees. Or is it really custom? Is it, let me choose which elements I copy each time? Maybe I choose it's the workflow. Does it include the dates? Things like that. So we want to hear from you. What you think?
Yeah, maybe think about it, the way you would normally do it in Excel, right? Like it's kind of, if you're building that log and you're doing that copy and paste lines, it's kind of a similar concept here that we're going for. So just thinking through what would you normally expect to want to copy over? How can we make that easier for the next stage? Because like we said, we're still working on these things. And so we want to incorporate as much of your thoughts and preferences as possible.
Exactly. So as we're kind of wrapping up this demo portion, we just kind of wanted to go over what's next. So again, we're continuing to develop these features. The alpha features are ready. And again, if you are here and you didn't hear before and you're part of alpha, you'll be receiving information from me tomorrow for our kickoffs next week. So be on the lookout for that. And again, all of the functionality you saw here is live. That's our alpha functionality. So we're going to continue. We're continuing work on this. We're going to roll additional functionality into our beta once we've kind of verified some of the functionality with people providing feedback for us in alpha. And so from there, once we feel like we're at a good point for beta, we'll be expanding that access with broader release and onboarding support.
Yeah, so like we said earlier too, CSMs are going to be sharing some more of those rollout details. So you can definitely expect to hear from us. They'll be the best source for timing, for early access opportunities. And we're going to talk a little bit about early access too, just a sec. But yeah, they're going to be a good source for that. That's all what's coming next. All right. And to wrap up, that's it. Like we said, at the beginning, we understand, we really do understand submittals are a whole process. They're more than just this paperwork, simple linear process. They're, what keeps your procurement, your schedules, the progress on the job site moving. So we tried to build tools around that. And we're hoping that you enjoyed what you saw today.
Yeah, and so we'll be answering some of the questions there, but as you can see, a closing poll popped up here. So if you would like to participate in some of our early access and our feedback for alpha functionality or beta functionality when that's ready, let us know. You can also, if you don't want to say anything now and it's, you don't want to put it in the poll, feel free to reach out to your CSM as well.
Yeah, there are, Nicole, if you want to take a look at the questions, we did get a couple questions that I think we might want to answer for the group. And then in the meantime, while she's taking a look at those, and we'll go over the questions you guys asked during the presentation. In the Q&A, if you see there's a Q&A option, and if you're willing to share with us, I mentioned at the beginning that we have some kind of more open-ended questions about submittals. So if you'd like to share with us, tell us in the Q&A a few questions. What's the hardest part of your current submittal process today? Where do you feel like you and your team spend the most time or lose the most time? And what in general would make your life easier, your team's life easier when it comes to submittals? Just when it comes to submittals, So go ahead, and if you want to share any of that feedback with us, you can put it in the Q&A, and we'll go take a look here at any of the other questions that came up, see if we can answer some of those for you too.
Yeah, so I see Chris asked about something that's an issue as the log is created from the spec book is sometimes that log is too big. A lot of items can be combined into a single submittal. Hopefully that's something that can be addressed. Yeah, so exactly that, right? With the ability for you to choose the name, the description, right? If you feel like something should be combined into a single item, you can do so. Again, when we looked at, if you're thinking about extraction, right? If it's something that you see that I think this should really be combined with the 2 or other 3 things into this spec section, rather than kind of send it over as multiple items. And that view that we looked at where you see kind of that suggested little, looks like a form almost, right, for that individual item, what you can do is kind of update, copy and paste some of the information from the other items and kind of create one larger item, right? So the requirements are whatever you want them to be. So whether you're building this out from extraction and kind of just grouping some items together like that, or in the log, you kind of set it up, however you feel best. So I think we will be allowing you to handle it that way. All right, how does a revise and resubmit action work? Right, so actually what we're doing this time is rather than having new lines, what we'll do is kind of keep that history all in one item. So when we took a look at kind of the item number before, one of the columns that I might not have shown is also a revision column, right? So let's say we've got to revise and resubmit. Not only you, but your submitter, anyone who's got access to this item, will be able to see the history of that item as it moves through. The item number itself will be appended with -01, let's say, if it's the first revision. The revision column will now show R1. And then within the item itself, it'll be very clear to both the submitter that you're requesting revisions from and all other parties that this item was originally rejected. What will happen is there'll be a rejected documents section that will stay with that item. All of the rejected files will have a rejected watermark, so we're sure that nobody's going to build off of the wrong things. All of the appropriate drawings will still be within that item, but it kind of allows you to tell that story of all of the revision cycles and things that this item went through. People will be able to refer back to that if necessary. Maybe your submitter forgets why this thing was rejected when they're going and then they're trying to find this other item. So what we tried to do is kind of keep everything in that individual item, and it's really easy. So when, let's say, your architect and that workflow that we saw rejects your item, the submittal manager will get a notification so they can take a look at that and say, yeah, I really do think we need revisions, or potentially, right, we've got a potential change out to the customer that would impact this. And so I think rather than saying this one's rejected, I think it'll be approved, right? So there's different actions your submittal manager can take to either kind of send that back to the architect and say, hey, wait, let's hold off on rejecting this. We've got a potential change that's coming to you and the owner here shortly. Or they can choose to send this back to the submitter, in which case the submitter will see that item show up again in their their view in the portal, and they'll see, right, that they have a rejection to view. And then again, they've got that history of what's happened and they can see that there. So definitely trying to make it as easy as possible to use. Everyone gets the notifications they need, but again, all of that kind of history of rejections is there as we need them.
Yeah,
See, is
which
there?
is always good, right? Because trying to track
Yeah,
that down like later is like, great.
yeah,
Hopefully it's somewhere in the log, next to the
yeah.
revised item. But
Exactly. And so there is another question about if there's a log export option, and that's actually one of our beta features. We'll begin work on that shortly. So it's exactly that, right? There'll be a way to kind of change that view. So like I showed you, you can choose which columns are visible. You can choose the order in which the columns show. You can filter all those things, and then we'll have an export option there for you as well. So that is coming soon. And then we've got a question about if we can upload the schedule on the portal, we'll pick up the date. That is one of the smart features. So kind of one of the things that we're, feedback that we're gathering with our alpha participants is more information about kind of the smart functionality, and what we hear are kind of the more critical pieces to work in first. So we have heard previously different things about how people might want submittals and schedules and things to interact with each other. So right now, we don't have a definitive plan for that. But we do know that that is probably something that we'll work on as part of our smart functionality that will come later. So kind of stay tuned, and feel free if
yeah,
you
and
want to participate. Yeah.
yeah, and similar to that one, Nicole, like I think I saw someone else ask about drawings, same kind of question, right? About the AI tool reading from the drawings to potentially populate more of the log. Again, it won't be not yet, but those are, those are things we certainly would love to start incorporating, like Nicole's saying, smart features.
All right. This is kind of bouncing around on me. Let's see. Does it have the capability to pick up other submittals like O&M, attic stock, warranties? Yes. So in the extraction that we saw, it will pull all of the different types. Just using AI, it's going to pull out all of that information. In testing internally, what we've seen is it's something gen like 98% accurate at this point. So
Yeah.
again, and you saw the information is highlighted right there next to it. So if you feel like it's not right, easy enough to update that from the drop down. But yes, it does pick up the
Yeah,
other
we went with
submittals.
more of the, try to identify as much as we can, right? Give you the option, and then if you want to ignore it, you certainly can. But that way, it pulls out anything we think needs your attention.
Some architects and engineers don't like review stamps. So one of the things that we have worked on is the ability for individual reviewers to kind of choose from an initial list of responses, just so the system knows what to do with that item, right? Is it generally accepted, reviewed, accepted, accept with notes, something like that? Or is it rejected, not required, revise and resubmit, right? So somebody chooses that type of response so the system knows, who do I notify next, right? Is this good to go? Does this need to go back to the submittal manager? And then each of the reviewers are able to use custom verbiage. We know architects do not, in many cases, like to say accepted, approved. They want to say reviewed, something like that, right? Or they have very explicit disclaimer verbiage, or just the response that they use. They're so particular about the wording of the response, right? And so rather than having your team have to, per project, set up the responses that the architect wants for that project, we just allow the architect, engineer, any reviewer to write whatever response they want, and that's what will show up on the stamp. So if they do something like approved as noted and they add their notes, what are the notes? All of that shows up on the stamp. If they want to change the disclaimer to something that is more specific to their company, they're able to do so as well. We do have additional plans in later releases to allow architects or engineers to upload their company logo as well, but that's not coming yet.
There was a question, Nicole, about like reminders, and I think you kind of touched on this, but I think there was actually maybe a couple of questions, I think, about reminders. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how, the architects or subs notified regularly, things like that about what's in their court.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're working on for our beta version, so things that are currently being developed, are different kinds of notifications, right? Because we know that not only individual people, but per project, they might have ways that they want to be notified, right? So somebody like your architect might say, look, now that I have a portal view, I'm just going to come in every day on the project. I don't need a bunch of notifications and emails. So at that point, right, they can choose maybe something where they get an email every day, just with the general, like you have certain projects that you've got active things in, so you want to be notified then. Or is it maybe the submittal manager and they decide, I want to be notified every time something changes on an item that's in review. I don't want to waste a minute, right? So that party will be able to choose how often and how they're notified. Is it emails? For internal team members, maybe it'll only be in-app, right? Because they're already in RedTeam. So rather than having to kind of go look at their inbox, they'll get those notifications there. But again, those are beta features. So all of that is being worked on, but it is not yet available.
And then I saw another one, I think was like a repeat, this Carrie's question about printing of submittal logs. So I think Nicole already addressed it. Yeah, the exporting, right, is coming. Similar concept there. You'll be able to customize those columns like she showed you, and then, you know, print or export it the way you need. And then I think maybe one more, there's just one of, and then I think we probably have to move to our last slide, but there is one more about integration with other systems. I know there was a question about the specific system. There is no integration right now with any other system outside of RedTeam. Obviously, it's going to integrate with everything in your projects in RedTeam, of course. If you're curious about that, I'm not necessarily familiar right off the bat with the one asked about. So we would love if you'd follow up with us with your CSM with a little bit more info on that. It's not something planned right now, but we can certainly look into it.
And I actually have one more. How can we keep the superintendent from being able to view anything but fully approved submittals? So in alpha, everybody on the internal team, for testing purposes, we want to make sure people aren't kind of hitting walls, will have access to kind of check everything out, right? So alpha is very much meant for feedback purposes. It's live, but you should be only using sample projects at this point. So what's going to happen later on, though, is that there'll be kind of role specific ways that you can choose what people are able to see. What we do know is that some of our clients, depending on their project type, they do have superintendents that they want to add to the review workflow for certain items, right? So it could be that, generally speaking, unless, whether it's your superintendent or someone else, unless they have access as either a reviewer, a submitter, something like that, they'll only see things maybe that are approved, right? That you don't want them to kind of worry about things that are rejected or things that are still going through the process. You want to make sure your superintendent kind of keeps their head in the game. They're just worried about things that are already approved. They're good to proceed with. They can direct people on site, right? But if you ever need your superintendent then to be a party who can take action on a submittal, you could still set that person up as a reviewer, and then they can still take that action, right? So just kind of wanted to point that out there as well.
All right, I think there's one more I do think we want to answer, just because I think it's a good one, and then we do have to probably wrap up. But there's a question, Nicole, about what if the subs don't have RedTeam? Like, what if they don't have RedTeam, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, we know that subcontractors usually don't have RedTeam, right? So what we saw when we were looking at the portal is very much, it's free to your team, your users. All they need to do is be invited to set up an account. So as you add people to your workflow, they're going to receive an invitation. Hey, come join your company in RedTeam SAO portal, right? Subcontractor, architect, owner portal. And then they'll just be able to create their account, log in. There's no additional worry for them. There's no charge. They don't need to worry that they'll be charged, right? It's truly, like Jen said, we really want to ensure that everybody can collaborate as necessary. So they will be able to log in and take all of their actions, regardless of whether they have RedTeam as well.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. So the answer is they don't need RedTeam, but they will be able to use it, no problem. So awesome. Okay, that was awesome, Nicole. And I'm sorry for anybody who might have other questions. We are going to sort through those at the end. If we didn't get to you, then we apologize. We're running out of time. So we will follow up with you guys, or your CSM will follow up with you to answer any questions that we didn't get to during the presentation, but we do really appreciate it. We wanted to make sure we just switch over to this last slide to give you the opportunity. If you want to, I believe the link as well is in the chat. If you open up the chat on Zoom as well. And so if you'd like to schedule a call, learn a little bit more, we would love to hear from you. So you can scan that and get a little bit more info. But like we said, a little bit earlier, a couple times in the presentation, we are going to be very much in contact. This was a sneak peek. We're really happy that you guys joined us to actually check it out and get a first look at it. But, it's coming really soon. So, what you saw, we're showing you this stuff live. And so we're really, really excited about this rollout. It's, one of our biggest and best. So thank you guys again for taking the time to come and see it early.